Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahe Tejasvinavaditam Astu Ma Vidvishavahi. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May that one protect us both. May that one nourish us both. May we work together with great energy and vigor. May our study be illumined. May we not unnecessarily cavil with each other. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. So we start with some questions.
Namaste. Namaste to everybody. I have a question, but it's a very, it can take the whole evening to answer. It can take even some months to answer. So my question is the following. According to my research, there is a message that is like a message that was written for humanity in the different sanctuaries and different in the different archaeological sites that basically is a message to humanities, but it's a message that is very complicated and scientific look at it at very keen eye, and this message, it seems like, comes from very old civilization and came to us to give a message. And my question is, what is this message for humanity? Because we are in the very transitional period in humanity, in a wide range of things. And my question is very pure on this side. What is this message so far? Up to you to discuss about it.
So I have no idea what these archaeological findings are, excuse my ignorance, or what this message is. So I can't really comment on it, not even a little. But I can comment on what our central purpose is in life, and I can comment on historical ups and downs. So if we study, never mind about archaeology, if we study history as far as we can study, then we'll recognize that as human populations grow, as societies become more organized, there is a cooperative spirit amongst them. And very soon, the cooperative spirit is actually only within a certain section, because another section will become a rival. And once that becomes a rival, then warfare breaks out. Now we can see this in primitive societies even today. For example, if we go to New Guinea, or in the Amazon rainforest, or even in parts of Africa, there is such a thing as tribalism, where one community decides that another community is threatening either their hunting grounds or threatening their territory, or even threatening their rival dominance. So there's no doubt that there is this element of tribalism within man, and it's carried through into modern society. So recently you'll find an element of tribalism where it can be seen to be a difficulty on the world stage. We find people of the same ethnicity, fundamentally, who decide that they will disagree with each other and fight with each other. And religion is no different. You'll find those religions that are supposed to espouse peace and love and harmony and the higher, nobler values are themselves at war. So what to do about such a situation? So whatever message is there is found, mysteriously or otherwise, it doesn't detract from the fact that we are our own worst enemy, or our own best friend, that life is exactly what we make it. Now, there's a central purpose to life according to the Vedanta philosophy. It tells us that there is one existence, and everything is only spirit, and everything else, any diversification of that, is a seeming fragmentation of that one thing, which leads us into an era of seeing things in a fragmented way. And we start off with a fragment called I. And by I, we mean that small area of history that was born at a moment in time and is going on an adventure and accumulating experience, some of it good, some of it not. And at the end of it, the equipment that that person is using will break down at some point. We call this death. Then the question that humans ask is, what happens beyond that? Is there a continuation of it? And if there's a continuation of it, will my central thrust, my central urge toward perfection continue? Logic tells us, of course, if the urge is there for perfection, we will strive toward it regardless. But we have to make a separation between that entity that was born at a moment in time and lives for a fraction of a second and then just dies. Something different must be there, something much more profound. An inner dimension in man must be there. Man in depth, that is the subject of the profound philosophies that have found their expression in every culture. And where wise people then make a warning about humanity, it will only be one central theme. And the warning is, please beware of selfishness. And selfishness occurring in a tribalistic way, or it can be in a national way or an ethnic way, or it can be differences in culture, language, and religion. And as far as we see these differences, we're out for some problems. So anybody, if there's any message anywhere, it would be, please can we see the unity of existence? Can we understand that it doesn't matter what language you speak, the whole idea of conveying a message across the board, the principle of communication is one. There's one intention behind it. And the intention is essentially cooperative. We can't manage things by ourselves. There's that saying, no man is an island. No, just for the recording purposes, I'm not saying no man is in Ireland. No, there are lots of men and women also in Ireland. So we cannot survive by ourselves because the pattern of life requires different skills, talents, and abilities. The rhythm of life, be it domestic life, be it national life, whatever it is, be it community life, whatever it is, it requires differences. And it requires all the skills and talents and abilities of multiple people to come together. So with this in mind, we can easily see how every person is individually capable and individually designed, as it were, to play an individual role in a drama called life. And if that's so, then we should play the game very well. And in playing the game very well, this is one technique which we call karma yoga. Karma yoga, let us play the game well so that we are not concerned or worried or distressed by the effects of all our actions. So if we read into any message in the past left by and picked up by archaeology or archaeological elements that have a scientific basis, you see, there are many theories that abound in this world, Because one curiosity of the human being is a little sense of curiosity mixed with adventure can turn into something like a conspiracy. And we enjoy that. It comes out as the apparent social need for gossip, a kind of entertainment, something that occupies the mind in a mutual chatter. And ultimately, instead of pacifying the mind, it disturbs the mind because it leads to criticism. So all we can say in Vedanta is very simple. Your essential nature is spirit. Your essential problem is you don't know it. Your essential way around it is to find it out using all the capacity of the mind, the psyche. And part of that, for all the techniques that are commensurate with the mind, such as love, devotion, intellectual pursuit, volitional activities. And all of these will have a central theme behind it. And the central theme will be mantra. All of them use mantra. All of them acknowledge the utility and function of mantra put into a regular series of rhythm called japa. And that kind of leads me really to a question that somebody sent me in text. I'll read this question out. He says, I have a question on mantras, japa mantras. 1, do different mantras have different purpose and hence different effects? Simple answer is yes, but I'll explain why. And secondly, in specific, is the effect of Gayatri Mantra and an initiated mantra on a specific Ishta very different? And the answer is yes to both those questions. Of course, I could leave it there without explanation, but I owe the questioner some explanation. We have to get back to basics and understand what do we mean by mantra. We can have 3 derivations of this word. It doesn't take a lot of imagination to understand that the word mantra has man and trana. Trana meaning freedom or liberation, and mana meaning thought. That is an intention toward freedom. Some movement in the thought process that ultimately leads the way and makes a breakthrough to discover our own inherent freedom. So are all mantras, let me come back to the question. He says, do different mantras have different purpose and hence different effects? We're assuming that if a mantra has a certain purpose, then it has a certain effect. But the second meaning of mantra means a protecting thought, something that protects. And it is also seen as a sound embodiment of whatever it represents. So there are 2 types of mantras, the Vedic mantras and the Tantric mantras, or mantras agama. The Vedic mantras, some examples will be Om, Hamsa, Swaha would be an example of a Vedic mantra. And we can see that the Hamsa represents a sound when we inhale, when we exhale, but it also means, of course, a swan. And the sun is seen to be, in a imaginative language, a kind of swan that swans across the sky, floats across the sky. And then a mention is made of the Gayatri Mantra. Gayatri is simply a meter, a kind of rhythm in which something is repeated. There's also a Vedic mantra. Certain children, most children who are entitled to it, are initiated at the age of about 9 into this Gayatri Mantra, and it is seen to be so sacred. has a meaning, of course. Let us meditate on that effulgent one, namely the sun, that gives life to everything, and may that light of knowledge come to me. And is preceded by vyahavritis, that is, certain sound symbols. Of course, it's preceded by the universal Om. Sri Ramakrishna tells us that the Gayatri merges into the Om. Of course, Om is the primordial mantra, and mantras are not words, even though in Sanskrit you may have words or a collection of letters that certainly have an etymological meaning. But there's a certain science which says that even these terms, these Sanskrit terms, will really be combinations of sounds that are discovered in the area of superconscious mind by yogis and mystics. Yogis and mystics, not necessarily in India, because if there is a sound that is discovered, a kind of vibration that is heard by the inner ear, then every mystic will hear it. It doesn't have to be of a particular nationality or from a particular geographic region. And so these subtle sounds of all the various subtle levels and layers of the entire cosmos, bearing in mind that Vedanta understands the cosmos to be pure spirit. And this is something of a difference between the Sankhya and the Yoga philosophies, which are intrinsically dualistic. So that nature is seen to be inert, a kind of materialistic philosophy. And in distinction to that, the spirit part, that is Purusha, is seen to be also inactive. But its presence and its proximity activates nature. Vedanta doesn't quite see it like that. It is then a development which says, actually, if there's only one entity, pure spirit, we can't make this division into spirit and matter. It was Descartes who produced this duality, mind and matter. And that created something of a problem. Cogito ergo sum was a profound statement he made. I think, therefore I am. But on Monday, I was telling a group of people that you can just as interpret it as, I am what I think. Somebody challenged me on this interpretation. But how do I come across that? How do I derive my interpretation from cogito ergo sum, which literally means I think and therefore I am. I think the one thing that we understand for sure is that we exist. So I exist. Then the next thing is, well, what is that? What is that thing called existence? What am I? Who am I? An eternal question being asked. Now, there is a hierarchy, an order to the universe, and if we take ourselves as a sample of the universe, not separate from it. See, when we talk about nature, we think of trees and flowers and water and birds and mountains, forgetting that we ourselves are part of nature. Our psychophysical being is part and parcel of nature, can't get away from it. But then what is that nature if there is only one without a second? If there is only one unity of existence? If Brahman alone exists and nothing else exists, then what is that? Well, nature must be a variation of it, an apparitional aspect of it, a manifested aspect of it. When seen through the fabric of time and space and causation and function, we see it in its variegated form. And when we rub our eyes, it goes away. Just like when we close our eyes, everything goes into the dark. When that supreme entity, as it were, poetically speaking, closes its eyes, the world vanishes and disappears. When we discover this unity of existence, that is our own true nature, then the whole world disappears. You can't have the two on the same stage together. When one is there, the other one is not. When the one is there, the other is there, then the one is not. That means, therefore, that this world disappears on the realization of our own true nature. And it is that appearance or that revelation that we're seeking, because we are seeking perfection. It's built into us to strive toward it. Something within us wants to do better. Something within us wants to have unending joy. But of course, we're looking for it in the wrong places. And when we talk about pleasure, we're not talking of any moral dilemma or moral issue. No, it's nothing to do with morality. It's simply a common sense thing. Looking for an ending joy, we settle for a small temporary pleasure, which doesn't give us the fulfillment and therefore needs to be repeated. When we can get out of that pattern, and you see, how do we get into that pattern of seeking pleasure? There's one very, very profound psychological reason for it. And that is, in our depths of our childhood, we have something like an original wound. Supposing the original wound is to do with the fact that we lost hope in the world or lost hope in ourselves. As soon as that surfaces, then we look for a way out. We look for some kind of relief, a way of forgetting it, a way of healing the wound without healing it, addressing the issue, but yet bypassing it, and therefore not gaining any level or degree of permanent satisfaction. And so it goes on until we learn some severe lessons. But on the positive side, what comes into our area are useful things, things which urge our seeking along. A competent teacher is necessary. The imposition, or the employment, I should say, of a discerning mind. The cultivation of noble qualities, whose characteristic is selflessness. The detachment from the fruits of all our activities that ultimately create anxiety for us. And ultimately, the earnestness and the yearning, if you will, the enthusiasm to find out what the truth is. With all of these components, we have useful guides, useful scriptures that act like manuals, telling us what we should do, A, B, C, D. And we also have the universe itself, because any shift, any movement that happens in the unconscious area sucks something in toward us. And if our thought is favorable things come into our area. And when these favorable things come into our area, they act as nourishment for the soul. Mantra is such a gift. It is extremely powerful and is essential in all spiritual practice. Mantras really, if you like, are letters that are arranged in a definite sequence of sounds. And they have representative signs. There is this entity that we are trying to grasp, that religion calls God, has many facets, has many, many aspects. And these aspects have many mantras associated with them. The mantra of any one of them is a letter or combination of letters which reveals this divine aspect to us. And for this reason, evoking this deity is done by the repetition of whatever the sound symbol is inherently in nature of that. I mentioned that mantra also means that which protects. It serves as a subtle means of protecting us from physical, mental, moral, and spiritual dangers. So coming back to our original question, if there are portents and signs of dangers, then the most powerful thing we can do is employ a mantra. The whole of the Vedas are full of these mantras. Some of them cast as negative. Sometimes some of them cast as positive, mostly positive, useful, in our favor. But the point is, it's a thought, and there is nothing more powerful than thought. Supposing you become despondent about the world around you because you highlight all the events of the news, because news is never good news. It's always bad news. Bad news sells. Good news, that's nothing. A few heartwarming stories here and there. But nobody highlights all the positive things that happen in our lifetime. Let us take, for example, our lifestyle. You don't have to go for too many generations back to see how times and life was very tough. In my own childhood, we didn't have ablution facilities. Not in a house. We had to use other arrangements. Of course, we had no telephones. Children of today are brought up with all these technological advantages. And of course, naturally, they take it for granted. It's always been like this. No, it hasn't. If you go back maybe 2-3 generations, there was a time, even in coal mines in England, where young teenagers who would have left school at an early age were employed in the mines. And since the coal mines, the seam was very narrow, they would hunch and on all fours, drag a cart along with coal in on all fours. This is within my own lifetime. So now imagine how much we have advanced. So there are many things to be thankful for. And if we have a correcting attitude, then we will simply insert more negativity into our own psyche that will attract more negative things toward us. If we are able to shift our thinking and see something useful by using a protecting thought, a mantra, the bija mantra has no specific meaning. It's just a sound. But the sound is a subtle vibration. The science of the bija mantra will tell us that it is a sound embodiment of a devata, the sound embodiment of a divine aspect. And the quality which we find there, we will evoke. If we repeat Om, Rang, Rang, of course, Om itself is a powerful mantra, the most powerful. We say Rang, Rang. That is, we're evoking that element of fire. And that gives us protection. We can imagine sitting there, being protected by fire on all sides, where nothing can penetrate it. There are many instances where this is being employed by people who are in severe, severe trouble, being about to be dragged to the court. And all of a sudden, things get resolved. So mantras have an enormous power. Supposing you think this world is bad and it needs correcting and we should listen to portents and signs of the past, then I would recommend one thing. Sit down and forevermore do your japa. Repeat your mantra, mobilize the mind and its powerful forces. And in doing this, change your own world. And do it for the good of humanity. I had a conversation with one devotee yesterday already, in bad health. He was saying, but I'm repeating my mantra and nothing's happening. Kind of complaining mode. I think I mentioned this last night's talk. I said, that's a misuse of the mantra. No doubt you can get an effect through a mantra. But your personal mantra given by a guru is something different. Its potency is there for spiritual practice. And the way in which this japa is done is by sitting and imagining in the center the form of your guru in your mind, that is in the head, and then merging that with your chosen ideal in the heart. And the mantra then becomes, or the repetition of it becomes, a kind of meditation, knowing how meditation is necessary, essential, and how difficult it can be. The use of japa and repetition of mantra paves the way for meditation, and during the process may lead you into a meditative state. So every mantra has a corresponding deity, where we can call it a presiding deity. The mantra is the body of that deity. It's the sound body of that deity. Not simply an idea conveyed to or understood by the mind of man. It's not merely a kind of assembly of letters carrying a face value of a particular meaning, nor apparently no meaning at all in the case of bija mantras. The power that is conveyed in the intellect associated with the mantra, that power is not expressed. The mantra, just by understanding the meaning of it. The mantra is a mass of radiant energy. It is tejas. It is the supreme truth. It is Brahman itself in a sound body. And it is without decay. It is not like a teaching or saying of great people which conveys advice or counsel, nor a prayer which may be expressed in the words that you devise or you choose. It awakens the superhuman power and ultimately leads to divine consciousness. It is claimed that these mantras by Upanishads were revealed to the rishis or men of God in a type of superconscious state. And indeed, when a mantra is given by a guru in mantra diksha, the guru will go into a meditative or contemplative state and wait for this mantra to arrive that would be suitable for the individual, for their progress. Japa is the meditation of mantra with devotion and faith, not just repetition. After the preliminaries have been gone through, it consists in cleaning the body. When you sit down and practice your japa, make sure the body is clean, can put on fresh clothes, select a separate place, a shrine, something like that. And with great reverence, repeat this great, great mantra. When people are given a mantra by a guru in terms of initiation, very often they have to make friends with the mantra. Because the mantra, just as it is, doesn't reveal much. It is only by repetition and practice that this sound embodiment reveals its essence. I always remember one devotee going on pilgrimage. They took a pilgrimage around Mount Kailash and Manasava and asked, what should I do? I said, do your japa as you walk. And he said, okay. And then he reported back to me sometime. He said, for the first time, the mantra revealed itself to me. That which was inside that mantra, inside that sound embodiment, revealed itself to me. Now I see how profound it is. But the questioner asks about the Gayatri Mantra. Of course, the whole idea of the Gayatri Upasana at the age of 9 is to lead a child to understand that the sun is a life giver. We can feel that the divine is there by the presence of the sun. If you want any evidence for a supreme divine, an infinite, invisible something that is a light giver, something that is radiant, something that is beautiful, something that is luminous, then the sun is the obvious thing to take. And so this Gayatri Mantra, of course, is glorifying this Supreme in the form of the life giver of the sun. And at some point then the child understands that it is not something external, it is that internal element in me. That thing, that life giver, is a life giver in me. And if it's a life giver in me, it's a life giver in everyone and everything. The Veda loses itself in the Gayatri. The Gayatri loses itself in the Pranava. That is the Om. And Pranava loses itself in Samadhi or superconsciousness. These are the words of Sri Ramakrishna. It's a very exalted prayer. So, is it different from the mantra given at initiation? Yes, very different. Should we stop saying the Gayatri? No, by all means, continue saying the Gayatri. Absolutely. But the most potent thing that you have is that mantra that is given by a guru. And of course, every time you say it, the Gayatri Mantra, strictly speaking, starts off with Tat Savitur Parenyam. But ahead of it, we say Om Bhu Bhuva Swaha. In other words, we're highlighting the individual aspects of this Om. Bhu, this observable universe in which we find ourselves, the familiar world. And then Bhuva, that is the interspace, that which fills everything. And then what is beyond. And therefore, it is highlighting also these three states of consciousness represented by the sound symbol Om, namely our waking consciousness and our deep sleep. And when memory and sleep combine, we call this dream. These three phases are there. So Om consists of these three constituent sounds, A, Om, and each of these represents a state of consciousness. And so we then have the whole of the existence. Now, Om without these associations has its potency, but to understand the meaning of it gives a depth, and that depth with the love of the sound, the reverence of the sound, becomes a revealing factor. Many students often ask whether they should meditate on these three syllables separately and in written form. Some inquire whether the script should be Sanskrit or English or any other language. But such meditation is not meditation on Om. Meditation on Om is meditation on its meaning, not on the sound. And when meaning merges into the actuality, then we really have the name of Brahman and Brahman itself. It's the nearest possible approach as a sound symbol to that which is beyond sound and form. And it has the profoundness of meanings. The whole theory of mantra is very complex. But suffice to say that every object that is picked up by the senses, we can call it every form, has its subtle corresponding dimension called name, if you will. If you say elephant, then an elephant appears in your mind. A picture is there. It's not that you stuffed a whole elephant into the brain, but automatically a picture. We think in pictures. And if those pictures are accompanied by feeling, then we have a chance of understanding what is the meaning, a relationship to that. Let's take the example again of elephant. Elephant, if an elephant appears in the mind, continue repeating the word elephant, elephant, elephant. The picture will continuously recur. But unless we value the elephant as a symbol of strength, for example, or to see the beauty of its eyes, or to see how it is huge and yet relatively placid, to see how it is custom designed to withstand the rigors of the outdoors, Now we are starting to understand elephant itself. And now we can say what gives it its strength. Is there some lesson we can learn from it? And there's one rule in meditation, by the way. Whatever you meditate on, that quality comes to you. If you want to see it, if you want strength, then meditate on the elephant. Swami Vivekananda used to say, I meditate on the heart of the lion. Heart of the lion is not literally an organic entity that sits and beats in the chest of a lion. But what he means is that the lion has tremendous courage. And that can be visualized and symbolized as a heart, a beating heart. So in terms of mantras, this sound, shabda as it's called, by holding that shabda, that sound, the substance of the Veda is eternal, but not the words, according to some schools of thought. But if we go back to the earliest Vedas, the Rig Veda, we see one thing, the goddess of speech coming out, Vagdevi, also now known as Saraswati. And it's praised in many hymns. The Shatapatha Brahmana teaches his mind entered into union with speech and identifies her with Aditi. Aditi, the mother of all the deities, represented as a shining sun or radiant light, if you will, luminosity. So this is the word that becomes flesh, and from this all words come, that is, all vibrations come. And by using these manifested vibrations and tracing them back to their origin, as it were, we have revealed the most subtle truths that are there waiting in the whole universe for us. So let us go back to the question to make sure that it was answered. Do different mantras have different purpose? Yes. And different effects? Yes. And is the effect of Gayatri Mantra, an initiated mantra on a specific Ishta, very different? Yes, it is very different, because the effect or the purpose of repeating the Gayatri Mantra is to catch that aspect of divinity that is intrinsically light or consciousness itself. And by meditating on that, now from that, of course, will emerge your chosen ideal. And the chosen ideal and that pure consciousness and anything that represents it is one and the same. But we have the opportunity of exploring these different dimensions that leads us to a unity of experience that is pure being, pure existence itself. Then question, I don't know if I answered, but I probably bypassed it in a sense. But I think you understand why. You see, when we get diverted by all these things are in the realm of phenomena, and they will pass. But the real spiritual journey is internal. It's not external. It's an internal journey, using the externals as helps and aids. And the real message should be those of the mystics, those who had this direct experience, and follow their example and follow their recommendations. Because you see, when you entertain so many ideas in the head, you miss out on the profound beauty of the heart. And if there's a contest between the head and the heart, we have to choose the heart. Love conquers everything else. And get into the actual direct, profound experience, the actuality of the experience, not thoughts about the experience. All right, so it's now approximately 10 minutes to 8. So I wonder if there are any more questions or clarifications even, or comments.
Yeah, hi Swami. I just wondered then, is there any need to practice the other mantras if you already have a mantra given by a guru? Because in a sense, it sounds like it's all sort of the same. It's all leading to the same destination in a way, or is there a time where, I don't know, if something particular is happening in your life and you say, you know what, let's take this mantra, or is it always your mantra from your guru, really?
Yeah, it's like a fashion statement. Clothes are useful, but the specific clothes that fit you and the color that fits you is what you should wear.
Yeah, I thought so. Keep it simple.
Yes, because you see, that is the most powerful. Remember what I said? That is the most potent mantra that you have. It is the most potent tool in your whole arsenal.
Yeah.
It is radiant, and it has to be, the essence of it has to be discovered. It is the most profound thing. Don't forget, it didn't come willy-nilly. It came from the area of superconsciousness, delivered at your door for you and nobody else. And while, of course, many of the bija mantras have their limitations, because the elements of nature have their limitations also. And so you can't say that there is another bija mantra for the element of fire. No, it's wrong. You can't say that there's a substitute for hamsa. No. So there are limitations, but the combinations and the power of the delivery, in other words, the potency through the channel of the guru and the guru's parampara, that's where the potency lies.
Okay. Thank you.
And thank you, Swami. It's really get like a good insight on some guidelines.
All right, then we'll leave it at that. We'll just finish off with Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.